Doesn't it sound idyllic? Like, who would want to live here? Except for the environmental contamination thing. Aside from that, it's beautiful.
This house is technically a hazardous waste site. Wolverine Worldwide, the company that makes Hush Puppies shoes, says it legally disposed of tannery waste in the area from 1958 to 1970. That waste turned out to leach toxic chemicals into the groundwater for years. Now, the families of House Street are living with the consequences.
I don't go to the faucet at all now, never to drink. You got to put bottled water. If you have guests every couple days, you got to hoist that big thing. And you saw I got a delivery, so now I got to carry those all into the house. So this property is worth zero.
About 15 minutes from Sandy's house is the site of the old Wolverine tannery in downtown Rockford.
We were thinking then maybe we don't even need lawyers. Wolverine's a good company town and maybe they'll work with us on this. And we truly thought, gosh, if we could get free shoes, who doesn't want that every year? That was about a 30-second discussion of free shoes, and then we went, yeah, we probably need a lawyer.
For years, the Rogue River has churned out this frothy foam. Just before we visited in June 2019, official signs went up warning people it's toxic.
I lived in the town. We drank from the river right there, out there where the foam is, right there. The water intake was right down there.
This group of Rockford residents worked for years to blow the whistle on contamination left behind from Wolverine's old tannery.
I have so many situations where I knew I was being watched. They had their eye on me, but bottom line, I think they were really afraid. I think they were really afraid the truth would come out, and I believe some of them probably knew.
Along the way, there have been police reports, lawsuits, town halls, blood tests, and a lot of water samples. But before all that was a company town and waterproof Hush Puppies shoes. Today, Wolverine Worldwide is a $2.4 billion global corporation, spanning roughly 200 countries and territories. It's home to brands like Chaco, Sperry, Merrell, Keds, and, of course, Hush Puppies. Go back to 1903, Wolverine was a family business, making just 300 pairs of shoes a day out of a factory in Rockford, Michigan.
I'd say Rockford was a company town. My dad worked there for 30-some years, and when he started there back in the late 40s, early 50s, it was a good paying job, and it was a steady job. At that time, it paid, just right about the same as General Motors did.
In 1908, the founders built a tannery to supply the factory with tough, durable horsehide. 50 years later, the Hush Puppies brand was born. And Hush Puppies weren't just any old shoes. They were waterproof, thanks to a special coating made with 3M Scotchgard. That Scotchgard coating used a chemical compound that was relatively new at the time, called PFAS, short for per or polyfluoroalkyl substances. The compound was invented by scientists in the late 30s, early 40s, and it turned out to be really good at putting out fires, resisting oil, and in the case of Hush Puppies, repelling water. Today, scientists know that PFAS don't break down in the environment. They accumulate in our bodies and have been linked to some pretty serious health effects. But back in the 50s and 60s, PFAS were a manufacturer's dream come true. And Wolverine says 3M assured customers its Scotchgard was safe. By the 1960s, Wolverine was the biggest employer in Rockford. And Hush Puppies were becoming a global hit. Everyone from Nick Cage to Keith Richards, Dr. Evil and Mini-Me, the Beatles, even Princess Diana were sporting the shoes. By 1963, 1 in 10 Americans had a pair of Hush Puppies. And in 1965, the shoemaker went public on the New York Stock Exchange, changing its name to Wolverine Worldwide. Then, business really started to take off. By 1989, its international wholesale sales surpassed its U.S. sales. And in the 90s, it began buying up shoe brands like Merrell and Harley Davidson. In 2005, sales topped $1 billion for the first time. And in 2009, the old tannery in Rockford was scheduled for demolition.
Wolverine was a huge piece of Rockford. The Wolverine Y, they sponsored the YMCA here in town. They've put on fireworks. They've done a lot in the community.
So how did we get to, well, this?
The ultra-contaminated tannery site in downtown Rockford. For years, it's leached high levels of the likely carcinogen into the Rogue, leading to fish advisories and contaminated river foam.
Let's start here with AJ, Lynn, and Rick. A big reason the town knows about PFAS contamination today is thanks to this group of Rockford residents. Lynn's a retired piano teacher, AJ's the lawyer, and Rick is the scientist. When Lynn heard about the tannery demolition back in 2009, she got worried about the potential contamination just a couple blocks from her house. So she started poking around. The more she asked, the more she learned. One of the people who helped her identify potential contamination spots was Harvey White, a retired Wolverine tannery worker.
Well, when I met Lynn and she told me about what she was trying to do, I could understand her plight. She lives in close proximity to that building, and here they were tearing it down. I couldn't blame her, and I didn't know about the PFAS, but I knew there was chrome and sulfide. After working there 37 years, as I seen the building and everything deteriorate because they didn't take care of it, it was hard telling what could have been taking place when they were tearing it down.
Lynn hired AJ to help strategize. He has experience on the other side of the issue, working for companies that need to comply with environmental regulation.
I felt that there was a group of citizens that were really being marginalized actively, and that kind of got me a little upset.
As the citizen, even though I devoted hundreds of hours to educating myself, to talking to people, to taking complex information and trying to understand it and then simplify it, still, she's just a citizen. What does she know?
Lynn tried to raise her concerns with state and local officials, but for the most part, she wasn't taken seriously. So she petitioned the federal EPA to look into the Wolverine demolition site.
In a company town like this, I was villainized. You just don't speak against, a company. And I felt like I wore the scarlet A for activism. I was treated quite badly by many staff, just the whole network.
The current city manager of Rockford said while he can't control what happened in the past, the city of Rockford is actively engaged with the entities involved to address community concerns over public health and safety within the city.
It was really hard not to give up. Do you remember? It was really discouraging.
Lynn needed a scientist to back her up, so she went to Rick, who had researched tanneries before.
She actually came to my office with a big container of papers and things like that, and I sat down with them and looked at everything, and I decided yes. So there was clearly enough evidence for me to get involved, yes.
Lynn, AJ, and Rick spent years conducting research, interviews, and urging officials to test the soil and water. Those tests eventually revealed contamination from a slew of toxic chemicals.
You look at people around you, and there's, when you first start there, and there's people that's worked there 30-some years, and they seem fine. You convince yourself that it must be it's safe, or somebody would say something or do something.
The mantra we would hear again and again is there's no known contamination. And again, if one is not looking and hasn't sampled the site, it's easy to say that there's no known contamination.
Wolverine said it adamantly disagrees with the criticism that it took too long to respond to concerns about the contamination, and that it's been proactive in ensuring all affected residents have access to safe drinking water. When Wolverine finally came out with maps of the contamination in 2018, they almost exactly lined up with the map Lynn drew years ago. She was right.
I was unprepared to see how much actual exposure when they did some of the blood testing. And there's another adult that has higher levels than the 3M workers just from drinking the water around the tannery.
I don't think they were out to contaminate the whole area. I'm sure that was they're just a victim of the times, let's say. When they dumped that sludge out there on House Street there in that big pit, at that time, back then, the early 60s and stuff, that was you know, it was accepted procedure.
I moved here with my husband in, I think, 1992. We wanted a place that was private with no neighbors. That was our goal. We didn't care how many bathrooms, how many bedrooms. We just wanted no neighbors. And as you hear, we got a lot of birds for neighbors, and deer and rabbit and raccoon, but that's it. This is Joel, and then this is my nephews, Eric and Ethan, and that's my brother-in-law, Art. This is up in Klingman's Dome in Tennessee, North Carolina. If you've ever been there, it's the spiral staircase and you get up there. And Joel got some marbles and decided he was going to hike to the top of Klingman's Dome and then roll the marble all the way down. All of a sudden, everybody at Klingman's Dome that day is like standing back, cheering for the marble to get all the way down. It took us probably a half hour, but eventually the marble made its way all the way down Klingman's Dome. So we have fond memories of that too. So
what a jokester.
He was nonstop. He was a kid. He was a nonstop jokester. Yes, absolutely. Yes. I mean, you lose your husband, there's nothing worse than that. He was my best friend. And I'm sorry. You constantly sit with the wonder of, did that contribute to this? And what's this going to do for me? Because I have exceptionally high rates in my blood as well. But you're here alone, having to manage that. And so there's a lot of times that you sit here by yourself and feel scared and feel angry and feel frustrated. So that light will get brighter. It's just one of those that takes a while. This right here is the whole home filter system, affectionately known as Megatron. It's got 4 granular activated carbon filters that the water goes through, I guess. I don't quite understand all the mechanics of it. I'm kind of Forrest Gumping my way through this whole thing. I want to be honest about that. I was sitting here watching the news one night, and there was a story about Senator Peters was doing a hearing on PFAS contamination in Washington, and it was open to the public. And I remember literally saying to my cat, well, heck, I'm the public. I might as well go. He should listen to me. Senator Peters came to Grand Rapids in November and did a field hearing that I got to speak at. And I just went back to Washington in May, and then we're going to Boston next week to speak. So, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. Don't be that impressed by it.
This tiny dot right here, that's Rockford. Those more than 700 other dots represent contaminated public water systems, military bases, airports, and industrial plants all across the country. Here in Boston, people from all across the U.S., even some from across the world, came to talk about PFAS.
It's my pleasure to introduce you to Sandy Winstell, Jenny Carney, and Tiffany McNaught. You guys mind if I use that because I look like a garden gnome standing. Can you hear me?
My name is David Bond. I teach at Bennington College. I'm an accidental researcher. Did not set out to study this.
My name is Brenda Hampton. I'm the administrator of Concerned Citizens from Lawrence County, Alabama. Our county consists of like 33,049 residents. It is down from 34,339 residents due to the contamination of our drinking water.
The biggest speaker of the day was someone named Rob Balot. He's a bit of a legend in the world of PFAS. Rob was one of the first lawyers to really take a big PFAS manufacturer to court and win. In 2001, he led a class action suit against DuPont. But he wasn't seeking payouts. Rather, he wanted the manufacturers to pay for more research on PFAS. In 2017, DuPont and Chemours settled multi-district litigation involving more than 3,500 PFAS lawsuits for $670 million and denied any wrongdoing. In Washington, PFAS has made its way into at least 20 bills this session.
We in the federal government have stood by as industrial manufacturers polluted our households, our drinking water, and our food supply.
The EPA said it's working on making a regulatory determination on 2 types of PFAS by the end of 2019. As it stands now, there's no federally enforceable drinking water standard when it comes to PFAS.
If it's not a food or medicine, there's very little government regulation. The government leaves it to manufacturers, and we need to change that paradigm, I think, and really think about, what are the health implications of a particular chemical or set of chemicals before those are released to the public.
On a smaller scale, Wolverine is facing hundreds of lawsuits from residents, including Sandy.
It's big. I mean, in the case of Rockford, this is one of the largest sites anywhere in the country. We're talking about waste that was disposed of many decades ago, and yet it is still found in the groundwater at concentrations that are among the highest anywhere in the world.
Oh, I think there's plenty of blame to go around. I think we can spread that quite eagerly. I know I'm not to blame. I know my neighbors aren't to blame. I know their children aren't to blame, but we seem to be the ones bearing the brunt of it.
We represent a family who's failed just from being old and out of date. So that's normal, that happens. But of course what normally happens is then you get a well permit and you put a new well in and you're back in business. But the state will not issue a new well permit, and so now they have no normal source of water. They don't have a well, they don't have a municipal hookup. So they now have to rely on water being trucked into their house. All we can do is bring the case to the court, but the court has over 250 cases. So they're not going to get heard quickly, and it's a problem, and I wish there was something that I could do to make it go better or faster, but I can't get them a new well. Wolverine won't buy their house and help them move, so they can't afford to move on their own without getting the money back out of their house, so they are just stuck in this mess.
The first PFAS case in Kent County is expected to be heard in March 2020. Wolverine says that many of the allegations against it are misleading, and that they haven't slowed in their commitment to helping the community. As of March 2019, Wolverine has spent over $17 million on water quality remediation. Wolverine is currently designing and engineering a water filtration system to stop 2 types of PFAS from flowing from its former tannery site into the Rogue River. Wolverine's agreement with the North Kent Sewer Authority was approved on August 1st, 2019, and it's suing 3M for selling them the compound in the first place. Wolverine claims 3M knew about the environmental risks of PFAS and failed to warn its customers or accept any responsibility for the impact of Scotchgard. 3M said it doesn't comment on ongoing litigation, but that it acted reasonably and responsibly in connection with products containing PFAS and stands behind its environmental stewardship record. But there's many more PFAS-related cases playing out in courtrooms across the country.
One of the biggest mistakes made by regulators and responsible parties is to discount the community. And I think there's an assumption that the community is ignorant, they wouldn't understand the issues. But in each of our communities are scientists, regulatory experts, doctors who are fully capable of grasping even the most subtle aspects of this. And hopefully if anything comes out of this, it's going to be, don't discount the communities.
I think we became like those little trick birthday candles that people think, oh, let's just blow it out. And then it relights. And they're like, oh my gosh, we gotta do more. And they go, and then it relights bigger and brighter, And they're like, and they blow even harder and it gets brighter yet. And it's like, they don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, then there's more lights like this and more people like that. And then they blow harder, and by doing it, they only make the candles grow brighter. To me, that's an image of what activism and being involved should be.